Hi everyone and welcome to English in the Afternoon. In this video, we'll discuss the present progressive tense, how it works, and how it's different from the simple present. When we say a tense is progressive or continuous, we are describing an action that is happening right now. In English, we describe these actions by attaching ing at the end of the verb. So, walk becomes walking, speak becomes speaking, learn becomes learning, and so on. You have seen and heard these types of words before, I'm sure. But it's not quite that simple. We cannot just say, I walking to the supermarket, or John speaking to his friend, or we learning about photography. In each of these cases, we are missing something called an auxiliary verb. Let me explain. In this sentence, the verb is walking. But before we can use the verb in the progressive tense, we need to use the auxiliary verb to be in front of it. And the verb to be slightly changes with each pronoun, and this is what it looks like. I am, you are, he, she, it is. We are, you are, they are. By the way, auxiliary just means help or support. In other words, the auxiliary verb just helps the main verb in the sentence. So in our sentence here, we are using the pronoun I, which means that we have to say, I am walking to the supermarket. In the second example, John is the subject, which means he. Therefore, we have to say, John is speaking to his friend. And in the third example, we, being the subject, means we have to say, we are learning about photography. Remember, you always need to use both the verb and the auxiliary verb when making a sentence in the present progressive. If we want to make the present progressive sentence into a negative, all we have to do is put not between the auxiliary verb and the main verb. For instance, my school is not planning a trip to Europe this summer. In this case, my school, or it, if we want to use the pronoun, is the subject, which means we have to use the auxiliary verb is. Then we use not, and then we use the main verb, planning. This is always the case when making a negative sentence in the progressive voice. We just need to write not between the two verbs, and it automatically negates the sentence. Here are a couple more examples for safe measure. They are not doing what the teacher said. Libya is not organizing a meeting between all North African nations. You are not thinking about the problem hard enough. Same story with each one. We find not between the auxiliary verb and the main verb. When it comes to asking questions in the present progressive, we need to switch the order of the subject and the auxiliary verb. We basically need to begin with the auxiliary verb, then use the subject, and then use the main verb. So instead of saying I am, we just say am I. Or instead of you are, we say are you, and then continue with the rest of the sentence. For example, is Jimmy running away from the police? Or are we having dinner at the hotel or at the restaurant? Or are they looking at us? Sometimes if you're not sure what tense you should use when answering a question, all you have to do is listen to the question that somebody asked you. For example, if someone says, are you walking to school by yourself? The answer should be, no, I'm not walking to school by myself. Or, yes, I am walking to school by myself. Or if they ask, do you play basketball? The answer should be automatic. No, I don't play basketball. Or, yes, I play basketball. It's a little trick that can save you from making a mistake. Now we know how to make a sentence in the present progressive. But let's take a closer look at what it means when we use this tense. We can again use the same time map as before, where this is the present, this left area is the past, and this right area here is the future. As we said in the previous video, we use the simple present when things happen over and over again, or when something is sort of a habit. Present progressive, on the other hand, is right here in the middle. We use the present progressive to show something that is happening right now. For instance, when we say, I am walking to school, it means you are doing it at this very moment. She is watching television. The Bulls are winning against the Lakers. Those people are taking pictures of the accident. All of these sentences mean that the action is happening right now. But we can also use the present progressive to show that we are in the middle of something that is happening these days or even this year. For example, we can say, Sandy is studying at Columbia University. This sentence does not necessarily mean that Sandy is right now at Columbia University studying. It just means that she is in the middle of studying at the university. Maybe she enrolled 2 years ago and she will graduate next year. So right now, she is in the middle of her studies. Therefore, we say, Sandy is studying at Columbia University. We usually say this when describing where people work, as in, he's working at a company that he doesn't really like. Or you'll sometimes hear people say, I'm staying at a hotel around the corner, or I'm staying at my friend's place, which basically means that this is where the person is spending their nights. Or sometimes we hear, she's working on a project, which again does not mean that she's working on this project right now, but she's actually in the middle of working on the project. And we also use the present progressive when talking about things that started to happen or are in the process of happening. For instance, we can say, the house prices in Detroit are increasing in value, or the weather is becoming colder each day. Now, there are some differences between the simple present and the present progressive that we need to cover. The biggest issue is that there are some verbs that cannot be used in the progressive way. These are the most common ones. This just means that we cannot put ing at the end of the verb, just like we can do for other verbs. We can only say these verbs in the simple present tense, as in, I understand what you mean, not I am understanding what you mean. Even though we are talking about something that is happening right now, we can still not say understanding. It's always just understand. Or even agree. We cannot say I am agreeing with you. It's I agree with you. And definitely not I'm loving you. It's I love you. Now, there are some exceptions to this. The verb to be is a bit of a tricky one. For instance, in the simple present, we can say, the pizza is delicious. Here we have the verb to be, which in this case is, as the verb of the sentence. This is a very common type of sentence in English. The dog is hungry, or Sam is tired of this movie. However, if we use the verb to be in the present progressive, it gets a little bit weird. For instance, the pizza is being delicious. Here we have the verb to be as the auxiliary verb, which in this case is, and we also have it as the main verb. In this sentence, it does not work. The only way we can use being in the present progressive sentence is if we want to describe how somebody is behaving at this very moment. For instance, they are being careful, or she is being selfish. These two sentences describe somebody's behavior right now. Another difference between the simple present and the present progressive is when we make sentences describing the senses: smell, hear, see, taste, look, feel. We usually say these verbs in the simple present and never in the progressive. It's always something smells funny, not something is smelling funny. Or this mushroom tastes strange, not this mushroom is tasting strange. And the last little difference between the simple present and the present progressive has to do with the verb think. We can use both think and thinking, but it depends on what we want to say. If we say, I think we should visit Mongolia, this means that you have an opinion about something or that you believe something. She thinks the earth is flat. They think California is overrated. You think everything is offensive. But when we say thinking, as in I am thinking of buying a house in Mexico, it means that a person is considering doing something. As in, he's thinking about applying to Harvard. Bill Gates is thinking about opening an office in Belgrade. What are you thinking about? Okay, let's do a little bit of work now. The following sentences need to be completed with either the simple present or the present progressive tense. Look at each sentence carefully and decide what to write. You can pause the video here and I'll give you a minute to complete the exercise. Okay, let's see what we have here. Number 1, she takes the subway to work each day. Number 2, Mindy does not understand what you are telling her. Number 3, we are thinking of moving to Chile. Here we say thinking because we are considering the idea of moving. Maybe they will move, maybe they won't move. Number 4, I never had kimchi before. What does it taste like? Remember, taste, smell, hear, and so on are always in the simple present. Number 5, is Mario talking to his wife in the other room? This is in the progressive because the person is asking a question of what Mario is doing right now. Number 6, they live in Montevideo. We never say living, always live. Number 7, Russia does not have any dangerous snakes. Number 8, Simon is building a small house in the backyard. Here we need to use the progressive because it can only describe an action that is happening these days. If we said Simon builds a small house in the backyard, it would mean that he usually does this, and that would not make any sense. Number 9, the sun rises in the east each day. And number 10, hurry up, everyone is waiting for you. Excellent work, guys. See you in the next video where we'll cover the past tense.